Emma Parker rises before dawn, her alarm unnecessary. Military precision guides her morning routine, bed made with hospital corners, clothes laid out the night before, backpack contents organized by priority and frequency of use. At 14, she moves with a purpose rarely seen in teenagers her age. The sun has barely risen when she checks her backpack for the third time. Stainless steel canteen, first aid kit, tactical flashlight, compass, multi-tool knife, ropes, waterproof lighter, and military rations. Finally, she carefully folds her young Marine's camouflage uniform and places it on top of everything. Her fingers linger over the embroidered name Parker, the same surname her father carries on missions around the world as a Special Forces captain. Through her bedroom window, the first rays touch the Colorado mountains, painting them in gold and amber. The summer camp with her school classmates would be her first wilderness experience without her father's guidance. Matthew Parker is on his third mission in the Middle East, the longest one so far, 8 months and counting. Emma adjusts the photo frame on her desk. Herself at 6 years old sitting on her father's broad shoulders by the edge of a crystal-clear river, both wearing the same camouflage pattern she now carries in her pack. "You look like him when you organize things that way," her mother's voice comes from the doorway. Sarah Parker leans against the doorframe, watching her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Systematic down to the last detail, Emma smiles, closing her backpack with a precise movement. Dad always says that preparation is what separates survivors from statistics. Sarah approaches, adjusting a strand of hair that escaped her daughter's perfect braid. The other teenagers are going to bring marshmallows and cell phones. "You're packing like you're heading for a reconnaissance mission." "You never know what might happen in the mountains," Emma replies with the seriousness of her 14 years. "Besides, I want to wear my young Marine's uniform." "You know they're going to tease you, right?" Sarah hesitates. "This camp is with your school class, not with your platoon." Emma straightens her shoulders, an unconscious gesture that mimics her father's posture. "The uniform isn't just clothing, Mom. It's who I am." Emma's cell phone vibrates with a message from Ryan Thompson, the son of the teacher organizing the camp. "Urgent. Van leaving in 30 minutes. Bring only essentials. No overdoing it, okay?" Emma shows the message to her mother, who raises her eyebrows. "See, that's what happens when you're the only young Marine at school." "They don't understand," Emma says, slipping the phone into her pocket. "But they will one day," Sarah finishes for her, pulling her daughter into a quick hug. "Just try to have fun, okay? It's summer camp, not boot camp." Emma nods, though her definition of fun has always differed from her peers. While they enjoyed video games and social media, she found satisfaction in mastering survival skills and physical training. As she shoulders her backpack, feeling its familiar and comforting weight, Emma remembers her father's words from their last video call. "The skills I teach you aren't just for emergencies. They are about living with awareness, about understanding your surroundings, about being prepared for whatever comes." The morning air feels crisp against her face as she walks to the school parking lot. Each step brings a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Part of her knows what awaits, the same jokes and eye rolls her uniform always attracts. But beneath that knowledge lies a deeper certainty. These mountains, these wilderness skills, this is where she belongs. This is where her father's lessons make perfect sense. In the distance, she can see the small group gathered by the van. Ryan's tall figure stands out, gesturing animatedly to the others. Emma takes a deep breath, adjusts her uniform one last time, and walks forward with measured steps. She is her father's daughter, after all. And Parkers don't hesitate in the face of challenges, no matter how large or small they might be. In the school parking lot, 5 teenagers waited beside a van. Ryan Thompson, a tall 16-year-old boy with the privilege of someone who never had to prove anything to anyone, was the first to notice Emma approaching. His eyes widened, then narrowed in disbelief. You've got to be kidding, right? He pointed to the military backpack and camouflage uniform Emma was now wearing. I told you to come normal. We're going camping, not invading a country. Laughter erupted from the group. Olivia Bennett, with her perfectly straightened hair and designer hiking boots that had clearly never seen mud, stepped forward with phone in hand, as if contemplating whether this moment deserved to be immortalized on social media. Oh my God, she really came dressed as G.I. Jane, Olivia announced, her voice carrying that particular pitch of mockery that teenage girls perfect by 8th grade. Emma felt her face heat up, but kept her expression neutral. Another lesson from her father. Never let them see they've affected you, he told her during her first week at a new school when the teasing began. Your reaction is the only thing they truly control. It's not a costume, Emma said evenly. It's proper wilderness equipment. Professor Thompson, a middle-aged man with a graying beard and genuine passion for the outdoors, emerged from the van with a clipboard. Unlike his son, he smiled when he saw Emma. Hello, Parker. I see you took my recommendations about camping equipment seriously. He examined her attire approvingly. Young Marines, right? Your father must be proud. A slight relief ran through Emma, who nodded. Yes, sir. Ryan rolled his eyes dramatically. Dad, we're going to be late, and we don't need all of that stuff. The place has structured cabins and marked trails. Marked trails don't prevent a twisted ankle or a sudden storm, the professor replied, checking his list. But I agree, we're running late. All aboard. During the 2-hour drive to Rocky Mountain State Park, Emma sat alone in the back seat. The others clustered together in the middle rows, occasionally glancing back at her with poorly concealed snickers. She heard fragments of their conversation. Military freak. Trying too hard. Probably sleeps at attention. Emma turned her attention to the window, watching as suburbs gave way to foothills, then to the majestic Rocky Mountains. She mentally reviewed her father's teachings about survival and first aid. The mountains through the window seemed to beckon, inviting her to the kind of adventure she had only experienced under the safety of her father's presence. The van stopped at a spacious base camp with several rustic cabins. In the distance, trails snaked toward the higher mountains, disappearing into dense pine forests. Cabin 3 for the girls, Cabin 4 for the boys, announced Professor Thompson. Get settled and meet me here in 30 minutes for today's hike briefing. In the cabin, while unpacking, Emma heard Olivia and the other 2 girls, Maddie and Zoe, whispering and occasionally glancing in her direction. Ridiculous. She acts like we're at war, Olivia muttered. My dad says those youth military programs are just for troubled kids, added Zoe, loud enough for Emma to hear. Her dad is hardly ever around, Maddie whispered. Probably why she's so weird. Emma took a deep breath, pretending not to hear while methodically organizing her equipment. Each item had its place, just like in her father's footlocker during his rare leaves home. She opened the locket she wore around her neck, a gift from her father before his last mission, and looked at the tiny photo of herself at 8 years old with him. Is there something in there? Maddie's voice sounded closer than Emma expected. A memento, she responded simply, closing the locket carefully. Look, Maddie lowered her voice, less hostile than the others. Nothing personal, but you always seem so intense, like we're in military training instead of, just living. Emma tucked the locket under her shirt. My dad taught me that discipline isn't about intensity. It's about being ready for any situation. My dad taught me to relax and enjoy life, Maddie retorted with a shrug, returning to the others. Emma finished arranging her equipment in silence, positioning her backpack perfectly aligned with the edge of the bed. In moments like this, her father's absence weighed more heavily. With him, she never needed to explain her attitude or defend her choices. Discipline and preparation were unquestionable values, not cause for mockery. Outside, Professor Thompson's whistle signaled the group to gather. Emma straightened her uniform, took one last look at her perfectly organized gear, and stepped out into the mountain sunshine, ready for whatever the day would bring. The trail we'll hike today is of medium difficulty, approximately 5 miles to an exceptional panoramic view, explained Professor Thompson, unfolding a map in front of the gathered teenagers. We'll take water, energy snacks, and a basic first aid kit. And Emma will bring a complete arsenal to face the zombie apocalypse, Ryan muttered, provoking laughter from the group. The professor gave his son a warning look. Actually, unhappy Emma is properly equipped. The mountains demand respect. As the group prepared for the hike, a forest ranger approached. The tall, weathered man with the official Park Service uniform briefly conversed with the professor, his gestures indicating concern as he pointed toward the higher elevations. "Attention, everyone," Thompson called after the ranger moved away. "We've been advised that bears have been spotted in the area. Nothing unusual, but we need to be extra careful with food and strictly follow the marked trail." Ryan patted his father's shoulder. "Relax. The bears will probably run away when they see Emma's uniform." More laughter rippled through the group. Emma adjusted the paracord bracelet her father had taught her to make, feeling the familiar connection. The braided pattern they had been making together since she was 5 reminded her of his steady hands guiding hers, his patient voice explaining each step. She took a deep breath, focusing on the trail ahead rather than the cutting remarks. The reactions of her classmates were predictable. Her uniform and preparedness had always made her stand out, and not in a way that earned popularity in high school. The hike began under a perfectly blue summer sky. The professor led, followed by Ryan and his friends, with Emma bringing up the rear. The distance didn't bother her. It allowed her to observe nature with the attention her father had taught her. She noticed details the others missed: fresh deer tracks crossing the path, a hawk circling overhead, subtle changes in vegetation as they gained elevation. 2 hours of hiking brought the group to a crystal-clear stream where they stopped to rest. Emma sipped water from her canteen while watching Ryan and his friends posing for selfies with the mountain backdrop. "Hey Parker," Ryan called, displaying a mocking smile. "Want to join the photo, or would that compromise your secret mission?" Before she could respond, Olivia intervened. "Leave her alone. She's probably scanning the perimeter for terrorists." The group erupted in laughter. Emma remained impassive, though she felt a lump in her throat. It wasn't anger that bothered her, but the frustration of knowing they would never understand what the uniform and discipline meant to her. It represented connection to her father, a bridge across the thousands of miles that separated them. 5 minutes, and we'll continue, announced the professor, consulting his map. Ryan approached his father, pointing to a side trail that veered away from the main path. "Can we take this shortcut? It leads to the same place but passes by those incredible rock formations." The professor hesitated. "That's not the trail I planned." "Come on, Dad. It's more interesting and cuts the journey shorter," insisted Ryan. "I've done this trail with the lacrosse team guys last year." After a few moments of deliberation, the professor gave in to the teenagers' delight. Only Emma remained apprehensive. Any deviation from the original plan activated her cautious instincts. Another of her father's teachings: a plan is only as good as your ability to adapt when it fails. But unnecessary changes invite unnecessary risks. The new trail was narrower and steeper, but undeniably more beautiful. Magnificent rock formations rose on both sides, creating a natural gorge. The group advanced enthusiastically, except for Emma, who had noticed subtle signs the others ignored. Claw marks on trees, partially eaten remains of wild berries, distinctive footprints in the mud. "Professor Thompson," she called discreetly when she reached the educator. "There are signs of bear activity in this area, recent ones." The man looked at her with a mixture of surprise and concern. "Are you sure? How do you know?" "My father taught me to recognize the signs. Look at those marks on the trees." Ryan interrupted, overhearing their conversation. Here comes the little soldier with her alarmism. Relax, Parker. Ryan, the professor reprimanded his son, but the damage was done. The group continued advancing, now with snickers at Emma's expense. 20 minutes later, the trail narrowed even more, forcing them to walk in single file through a corridor of towering pines. The air felt different here, still and expectant, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Emma felt the familiar tightening in her stomach that her father called situational awareness, the body's natural alarm system that too many people ignore. She was about to speak up again when Maddie, who was now leading the group, stopped abruptly, causing a chain collision of inattentive teenagers. "What is it?" asked Ryan, irritated by the sudden halt. Emma looked past the frozen teenagers and felt her heart skip a beat. She finally understood why the forest had gone so quiet. Maddie pointed ahead, unable to form words. Less than 100 feet away, an adult grizzly bear was rummaging through a wild raspberry bush. The massive creature, with its distinctive shoulder hump and dish-shaped face, remained focused on its foraging, unaware of the human intruders. "The animal hasn't noticed us yet." "Nobody move," whispered Professor Thompson, his face turning pale. "Let's back away slowly without making noise." Emma felt a strange clarity descend over her. Time seemed to slow as her father's voice echoed in her mind. "Fear is information, not a command. Let it sharpen you, not paralyze you." But before they could begin retreating, Zoe, in the panic of the moment, dropped her water bottle. The sound of plastic hitting rocks immediately drew the bear's attention, which raised its head, focusing directly on the group. "Run!" shouted Ryan, being the first to turn and dash down the trail. "No." Emma tried to warn, but it was too late. The others followed Ryan, running uncontrollably back the way they had come. Running from a predator, exactly what every wilderness guide warned against. Only the professor and Emma remained frozen, watching as the bear, now curious and alert, moved toward the fleeing group. "They shouldn't run," murmured Emma, her mind quickly processing options. The professor, pale and visibly shaken, whispered, "I need to catch up to them before they separate. What do we do?" Emma felt a strange moment of clarity, as if all the training had been preparing her for precisely this moment. Her father's lessons crystallized into a clear course of action. "Go after them, keep them together," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'll distract the bear." "What?" "No, it's too dangerous." The professor grabbed her arm. "I know what I'm doing, sir. Please trust me." Something in the girl's determined calmness made the professor hesitate, and then reluctantly nod. "Be careful. I'll come back with help." As the professor began to back away, Emma took a deep breath. She remembered her father's lessons about predator behavior. Bears are opportunistic predators. They chase what flees. They respect what stands its ground. With calculated movements, Emma spread her arms, making herself appear larger. She banged her metal canteen against her knife, producing a sharp, unnatural sound, something wild predators instinctively avoid. "Hey!" she shouted with a firm, controlled voice. "Hey, look at me!" The bear, which had begun to follow the fleeing group, stopped. It turned its massive head toward Emma, clearly confused by this new threat that wasn't running away. Emma continued banging the metals, maintaining eye contact without directly challenging the bear. Slowly, she began to move laterally, away from the main trail. The bear, curious and cautious, followed her movement. To her immense relief, the animal abandoned the pursuit of the group and now focused exclusively on her. It had worked. She was drawing the bear away from the others. "That's right, big guy," she murmured. "Follow me." With measured steps, she continued backing toward the rocky slope she had noticed earlier. The bear maintained its distance but followed, intrigued by this strange human who showed no fear but also posed no threat. When she reached the base of the rock formation, Emma quickly assessed the situation. The wall was approximately 12 feet high, with enough protrusions to climb. Impossible for a bear but viable for someone with her young Marine's training. The bear was approaching. It was time. With precision that would have made her father proud, Emma began climbing. The regular training on the climbing wall of the youth military program proved its value as she methodically ascended, finding secure holds for hands and feet. Below, the bear rose on its hind legs, reaching an impressive 8 feet in height, but still unable to reach her. The animal let out a frustrated grunt, slamming its front paws at the base of the rock. From her elevated position, Emma assessed the situation. She was safe, but isolated. The bear seemed determined to remain nearby, frustrating any possibility of immediate descent. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, adrenaline coursing through her system. Yet, rather than panic, she felt an unexpected sense of competence. Every weekend training session, every lesson from her father, every mockery she had endured for her excessive preparation, all of it now served a clear purpose. From atop the rock formation, Emma could see part of the main trail. There was no sign of the others, which meant they had probably managed to return safely to the base camp, exactly as she had planned. The bears circled the base of the rocks, occasionally standing to get a better look at her. Emma remained still, controlling her breathing the way her father had taught her during their shooting lessons. "Always breathe through stress," he had said. "It's the bridge between panic and precision." As the minutes stretched into an hour, Emma realized she might be here longer than she'd initially thought. The sun was beginning to set on the horizon. Soon it would be dark, and the temperature in the mountains would drop rapidly. She had succeeded in her immediate goal, protecting the group. Now came the second challenge, protecting herself through what might become a very long and cold night. Emma opened her backpack, grateful she had brought what Ryan had mockingly called her military excesses. She put on a thermal jacket, opened a package of emergency rations, and consulted her compass. If she needed to spend the night on this rocky perch, she was prepared. The bear continued to circle below, occasionally standing on its hind legs to peer up at her. Each time it rose to its full height, Emma marveled at the creature's power, over 8 feet tall with claws that could tear through flesh as easily as paper. Yet despite the danger, she felt a strange respect for the animal. It wasn't malicious. It was simply following its nature. "We're both just trying to survive out here, aren't we?" she whispered, breaking off a piece of high-energy protein bar. From her elevated position, Emma watched as the shadows lengthened across the valley. The golden light of late afternoon painted the landscape in rich ambers and deep purples. In another context, she might have called it beautiful. Her father would have appreciated the view. He had always taught her to find moments of wonder even in difficult situations. The ability to recognize beauty in hardship is what separates survivors from victims, he told her once during a particularly challenging hike when she was 10. As the air grew cooler, Emma organized her resources methodically. The thermal jacket would preserve her core temperature. The space blanket from her first aid kit could be wrapped around her legs. She had water, food, and even a small LED light that would help signal rescuers once darkness fell. The bear seemed increasingly frustrated by its inability to reach her. It circled the rock formation, occasionally pawing at the base or testing different approaches. Emma watched its movements carefully, analyzing its behavior as her father had taught her to analyze any potential threat. "Understanding your opponent's patterns gives you advantage," it explained during self-defense training. "Everyone and everything has a pattern if you observe long enough." After approximately an hour, she noticed the bear's interest beginning to wane. Its circles grew wider, its attention more divided between her and the surrounding forest. Finally, after one last contemplative look in her direction, the animal wandered toward a patch of berries about 50 yards away. Emma remained motionless, watching. Another of her father's survival rules. Patience often separates professionals from amateurs. Just because the bear had moved away didn't mean it was gone, and premature celebration could be fatal. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in dramatic streaks of orange and pink, Emma continued her vigilant observation. The bear moved farther into the distance, eventually disappearing among the trees. Even so, Emma waited another 30 minutes, carefully scanning the surrounding area before considering descent. The light was fading rapidly now, but she still had enough visibility to climb down safely if she moved quickly. With the same methodical precision she had used to ascend, Emma began her descent. Each movement was calculated and tested before committing her weight. Halfway down, her foot slipped slightly on a loose rock, sending a shower of pebbles to the ground below. She froze, listening intently for any sound of the bear returning. Nothing but the whisper of wind through pine needles and the distant call of an evening bird. After reaching the ground, Emma crouched low, taking a moment to reorient herself. The main trail should be about 200 yards to the east, according to her mental mapping of their journey. But moving through unfamiliar forest in diminishing light carried its own risks. She retrieved her tactical flashlight, but kept it off for now. Using it would help her see, but it would also announce her position to any wildlife in the area. Better to let her eyes adjust to the gathering darkness and preserve night vision as long as possible. Emma moved carefully through the underbrush, each step deliberate and tested before committing her weight. The mountain air grew sharper with the approach of night, carrying the scent of pine and the earthy richness of forest soil. Reaching the edge of a small clearing, Emma paused to consult her compass. The base camp lay approximately 2 miles northwest, following the main trail. She adjusted her direction accordingly, feeling a growing confidence despite her situation. She had faced one of the most dangerous predators in North America and survived through skill rather than luck. The mockery of her preparedness, her uniform, her intensity, as Maddie had called it, all of that seemed trivial now. In the deepening twilight, Emma felt a connection to her father stronger than physical presence could provide. She had become the person he had trained her to be, calm under pressure, resourceful in difficulty, and able to transform fear into focus. As she found the main trail and began the journey back to camp, Emma touched the locket around her neck. Whatever happened next, she had proven something, not to her classmates, but to herself. She was her father's daughter in more than just name. The sun was already disappearing behind the mountains, casting elongated shadows across the valley. Consulting her compass and the mental map she had made of the path, Emma began plotting a route back to the base camp. Stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky, brilliant and clear in the high mountain air. Emma moved with purpose along the trail, her tactical flashlight now activated but pointed downward to preserve her night vision, while still illuminating the path immediately ahead. She had been walking for only 15 minutes when she heard voices calling her name. Flashlight beams danced among the trees, slicing through the gathering darkness like searching fingers. "Here!" she shouted, turning on her own tactical flashlight and flashing it 3 times. The universal distress signal her father had taught her during their first overnight camping trip. A rescue group quickly emerged from the tree line. 2 forest rangers in official uniforms, Professor Thompson with a look of profound relief, and surprisingly Ryan, his usually confident expression replaced by something Emma had never seen there before, genuine concern. "Emma." The professor ran to her, relief evident on his tense face. "Thank God you're all right. We were terrified when the beer—" He broke off, seemingly unable to complete the thought. "Are you injured?" asked one of the rangers, examining her professionally with a sweeping gaze that assessed for signs of trauma. "I'm fine, sir," Emma replied with the calm demeanor her young Marines instructors had instilled. "I managed to lure the bear away from the trail and climbed that rock formation to wait in safety until it lost interest." The ranger exchanged impressed looks with his colleague. "That was extremely intelligent and brave for someone your age. Most adults panic in these situations." The second ranger nodded agreement. You kept your head exactly when you needed to. That's rare, especially for a teenager. Ryan, who had remained a few steps behind, finally approached. His normally confident face was pale and marked by something Emma had never seen before: shame. You could have died because of us, he said, his voice surprisingly small. I led that stupid run. Did exactly what you're not supposed to do. He looked down at his expensive hiking boots, unable to meet her eyes. Dad explained after, you never run from a bear. I knew that, but I just panicked. Emma adjusted the backpack on her shoulders, feeling the comforting weight of the equipment that had been ridiculed hours before. I just did what my father taught me. The walk back to the base camp was quiet, illuminated only by flashlights and the beginning of moonlight filtering through the pine branches overhead. Professor Thompson walked beside Emma, occasionally glancing at her with new respect. Your father is military, correct? He asked softly. Emma nodded. Special Forces. He's on his 3rd deployment in the Middle East. He's trained you well, the professor said. Most parents teach their children to look both ways before crossing the street. Yours taught you how to face down a grizzly. He taught me how to think, not what to think, Emma replied. That's the real difference. When they arrived at the base camp perimeter, Emma was greeted by something unexpected: applause. The rest of the group anxiously waited along with other park staff, and even some campers from nearby areas who had heard about the incident through the ranger radio. Olivia, Maddie, and Zoe immediately approached, enveloping her in a group hug that caught her off guard. We thought you had, Maddie's voice faltered. When the bear turned toward you. Sorry we laughed at your uniform and equipment, added Olivia, visibly shaken. You literally saved our lives. The chief forest ranger, a tall woman with salt and pepper hair and weathered features, asked for silence and addressed the gathered group. What we witnessed today was extraordinary, she said, her authoritative voice carrying across the clearing. This young woman demonstrated presence of mind and courage that we rarely see even in experienced professionals. She turned to Emma. I heard you're part of the Young Marines. They must be proud to have someone like you representing the program. Emma felt her face burn with the public praise, but maintained the upright posture her training demanded. I just applied what I learned, sir. Most impressive, continued the ranger, is that you not only saved yourself, but consciously put yourself at risk to protect others. That demonstrates exceptional character. When the small impromptu ceremony ended, Ryan approached again, this time accompanied by his father. I wanted to formally apologize, he said without his usual arrogant tone. Not just for today, but for all the times I mocked your uniform, your discipline, everything. He extended his hand. I was wrong, and thank you for saving us. Emma accepted the handshake, recognizing the cost such an admission would have for someone like Ryan. Professor Thompson placed his hand on Emma's shoulder. Your father would be extremely proud. He paused, a hint of something in his expression suggesting he had more to say. By the way, we tried to contact him through the military base. Were you able to reach him before the trip? Emma couldn't hide the anxiety in her voice. No, sir. Communications with my father during missions are rare. A smile appeared on the professor's face. Actually, we were able to connect. And there's more. Due to the exceptional circumstances, the base is arranging a video call for tomorrow morning. The emotions Emma had kept under control during the entire crisis finally threatened to overflow. The prospect of speaking with her father, of telling him personally how his teachings had literally saved lives, was almost overwhelming. For the first time since the bear encounter, Emma felt tears forming in her eyes, not from fear or relief, but from the purest form of joy. Emma barely slept that night. The knowledge that she would speak with her father in the morning kept her mind active, rehearsing what she would tell him, imagining his reaction. In the cabin that had felt so hostile just hours before, the atmosphere had transformed. Olivia, Maddie, and Zoe treated her with a mixture of respect and curiosity, asking questions about her training with genuine interest. "So you've been doing this young Marines thing since you were how old?" Maddie asked as they prepared for bed. 8, Emma replied, carefully folding her uniform. "My father enrolled me when he saw how much I wanted to be like him." "Wasn't it hard?" Zoe wondered. "All that training and discipline when other kids were just playing." Emma considered the question. "It wasn't always easy," she admitted. "But it never felt like a burden. It felt like belonging to something important." Olivia, who had been the most dismissive earlier, sat on the edge of Emma's bed. "I'm sorry about what I said, about your uniform being a costume." Her voice was uncharacteristically subdued. "I didn't understand what it meant to you." "Most people don't," Emma said without resentment. "That's okay." "It's not okay," Olivia insisted. "We judged you without knowing anything about you or why you do what you do." Emma looked at the 3 girls who had mocked her just that morning. "My dad says that understanding often comes only after experience. You couldn't have known what this uniform means until you saw what it represents in action." The next morning, Emma woke before dawn, as was her habit. She showered and carefully put on her young Marine's uniform, making sure every detail was perfect. Her father would expect nothing less. In the small administrative room of the camp, Emma nervously adjusted her collar, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. The computer screen in front of her remained blank, waiting for the connection. The door opened, and Professor Thompson entered, followed by a surprise. The entire camping group, including Ryan, Olivia, and the others who had previously mocked her. "We hope you don't mind," said the professor. They wanted to be present. Ryan stepped forward, holding something in his hands. "We made this last night." It was a handcrafted certificate, the kind made with construction paper and markers, but created with obvious care. It was signed by everyone with the words, "Award for Courage and Leadership. Emma Parker, the true hero among us." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she accepted the certificate. Before she could respond, the computer screen lit up. After a few seconds of adjustment, the face of Captain Matthew Parker appeared wearing his combat uniform, the desert tan contrasting with the dark interior of what appeared to be a military communications room. "Emma," the familiar deep voice filled the room, instantly bringing tears to the girl's eyes. "Dad," was all she could initially say, the typical composure momentarily abandoned. Captain Parker smiled, his eyes examining his uniformed daughter with obvious pride. "You're wearing the uniform. You look like a true Marine." Emma automatically straightened her shoulders. "Yes, sir." "I received a very interesting report about you," he continued, his tone mixing evident pride with his usual military formality. "Something involving a grizzly bear, a tactical evacuation, and advanced evasion techniques." Professor Thompson stepped into the camera's field of vision. "Captain Parker, Professor Thompson here. Your daughter saved several lives yesterday with extraordinary courage and presence of mind. Frankly, I've never seen anything like it." One by one, the teenagers approached, sharing their perspectives on the incident. Ryan described how Emma had purposely drawn the bear away from the group. Olivia explained how Emma had remained calm, while everyone else panicked. Zoe recounted how she had cleverly used noise to distract the animal instead of running. Matthew Parker's expression alternated between intense pride and contained emotion as he listened to accounts of how his daughter had precisely applied the teachings he had shared over the years. The chief forest ranger, who had joined the group that morning, stepped forward last. "Captain Parker, I've been a ranger in these mountains for 23 years. What your daughter did required the kind of clear thinking we rarely see in trained adults, let alone teenagers. You've raised an exceptional young woman." When everyone finished and discreetly left the room to give father and daughter privacy, Matthew finally let his formal military posture relax a bit. "Em," he said, using the childhood nickname he rarely employed since she entered adolescence. "What you did was exceptionally brave. More than that, It was intelligent and selfless. Those are the qualities that define not just a good soldier, but an exceptional human being. Emma felt the tears she had been holding back finally streaming down. I just did what you taught me, Dad. When I saw the bear following them, I remembered everything you told me about predators, about staying calm in a crisis, and about using fear as a tool, not an obstacle. And about protecting those who need protection, he completed with a knowing smile. She nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I was afraid, very afraid. But somehow I knew exactly what to do, as if you were there with me. I was. In a way, Matthew touched his chest, where his own locket, identical to Emma's, would be under his uniform. Everything we've shared, every camping trip, every lesson, every story, all of it becomes part of who we are. For a few moments, they remained in comfortable silence, the connection between them transcending the thousands of miles of physical distance. The mockery Emma had endured, the isolation she had felt, all it seemed distant and insignificant now. Your mother tells me you're receiving some kind of award ceremony when you return, Matthew said finally. Emma nodded. The young Marines regional commander is coming. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. Her father's expression grew serious. Never be embarrassed by recognition earned through courage and skill, Em. You represent the best of what the uniform stands for. As their time drew to a close, Captain Parker leaned closer to the camera. I'm proud of you, Emma. More than I can express. His voice carried the weight of emotion military men often find difficult to articulate. When I return, 3 months from now, we'll go camping. Just the two of us. I'd like that, Dad, Emma replied, touching the locket around her neck. As the screen went dark, Emma remained seated for a moment, absorbing the conversation. Outside the window, the Colorado mountains stood majestic against the morning sky, the same mountains that had tested her and found her worthy. 3 months later, Emma stood at attention in the school gymnasium, while the regional commander of the young Marines pinned a medal for valor and exceptional service to her uniform. The ceremony had drawn an unexpected crowd, not only members of the youth military program, but also students, teachers, and family members who filled the bleachers. In the front row, Ryan Thompson and the former mockers from her camping trip applauded enthusiastically. Beside them, Sarah Parker smiled with tears of pride, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. And on a large screen mounted at the back of the stage, attending via video call, Captain Matthew Parker watched the ceremony, his own chest adorned with medals earned on distant battlefields. Cadet Parker not only demonstrated exceptional courage in the face of danger. tJudge the commander, a decorated veteran with a bearing that commanded respect, but embodied the core values of our program: leadership, discipline, and service above self. Her actions are an example for young people and adults alike. As the commander stepped back, Emma maintained her perfect posture, eyes forward, expression composed. But beneath the disciplined exterior, her heart raced with emotions she would have found difficult to name. Pride, certainly, but also a profound sense of having found her place in the world. The school principal approached the microphone next. What happened in Rocky Mountain State Park has become something of a legend at our school, she said, smiling at Emma. It has taught us all an important lesson about judging others based on appearances or differences. Emma Parker's preparedness and training, once the subject of misunderstanding, proved to be exactly what was needed in a crisis. After the formal ceremony concluded, Emma found herself surrounded by well-wishers. The young Marines in attendance regarded her with admiration bordering on awe. Younger cadets asked for details about the bear encounter, hanging on her every word. As the crowd began to disperse, Emma was approached by a younger girl she had never seen before, perhaps 10 or 11 years old, wearing civilian clothes but with a military-style backpack. Is it true that you faced a bear alone? The girl asked with wide eyes. Emma smiled. I didn't exactly face it. I just knew how to react appropriately. Because of your training? The girl pointed to the uniform with unmistakable admiration. Partly because of the training, Emma replied thoughtfully, but mainly because of the values it represents. Emma lightly touched the locket under her uniform. I learned that the uniform isn't just what we wear on the outside. It's who we choose to be when facing challenges. The girl nodded solemnly. I want to be like you when I grow up. Before Emma could respond, a woman approached, presumably the girl's mother, with a familiar expression of mild concern that reminded Emma of her own mother's face when Matthew first suggested enrolling her in Young Marines. Jessica has been talking about joining since she heard your story, the woman explained, placing a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. I'm not sure it's right for her. She's always been sensitive. Emma recognized the hesitation in the woman's voice, the same doubt she had heard from others who didn't understand the program's purpose. Ma'am, Emma said respectfully, the Young Marines isn't about toughening up sensitive children. It's about helping them discover strengths they didn't know they had. She knelt to Jessica's level. Being sensitive isn't a weakness. It means you notice things others miss, and that can save lives. The girl's face brightened. Like how you noticed the bare signs when no one else did. Exactly like that. Later, alone in her room, Emma carefully removed the new medal and placed it beside the photo of her with her father. The girl smiling in that old photograph, perched on her father's shoulders by a crystal-clear river, seemed simultaneously a stranger and an essential part of who she had become. The camouflage uniform, now impeccably hung in her closet, was no longer an object of mockery at school. It had become a symbol of respect, even admiration. But for Emma, it had always been much more than fabric and insignia. It was the tangible legacy of her father, the physical manifestation of the values he had passed on to her through rivers crossed hand in hand, campfires under starry skies, and countless stories of courage and sacrifice. Her phone vibrated with a text notification. It was from Ryan. Meeting tomorrow to plan the Wilderness Club. Your survival workshop already has 20 people signed up. Emma smiled at the irony. The same skills that had once made her an outsider now placed her at the center of a community she never expected to join or lead. As she adjusted the frame on her desk, Emma reflected on how a single moment of crisis can reveal truths that years of words could never express. Not just to others who now saw beyond the military excess they had previously ridiculed, but to herself. In those intense minutes facing the bear, she had discovered that true strength wasn't in the uniform, not even in the techniques learned, but in the unwavering certainty of who she was and the values she carried. A legacy that no distance or danger could diminish. Her father had taught her to survive, but more importantly, he had taught her to live with purpose, to understand that preparation wasn't paranoia, discipline wasn't rigidity, and standing apart wasn't the same as standing alone. A notification appeared on her laptop, an incoming video call from a military address. Emma smiled, straightening her posture automatically as she accepted the call. Captain Matthew Parker's face appeared on screen, but this time with a difference. He was in civilian clothes, seated what appeared to be an airport terminal. Dad? I thought you weren't coming home until next week. Changed flights, he replied with a grin. Couldn't miss my daughter's ceremony. Landing in Colorado in about 3 hours. Emma felt her composure momentarily slip as joy washed over her. Will you be able to stay for a while this time? 4 months minimum, he replied. And I've been thinking about that camping trip I promised. How does this weekend sound? Just you, me, and those mountains that seem to bring out the best in both of us. Emma touched the medal on her desk, then the locket around her neck. Twin symbols of a connection that had never truly been broken by distance. I'd like that, she said, knowing those simple words carried all the meaning her father would understand. I'd like that very much.